The media called it an upgrade, but they were wrong. What BYD just unveiled isn't merely an improvement. It's a knockout blow. The next generation Blade battery doesn't just charge faster, cost less, and last longer. It shifts the entire global power structure in one quiet, devastating move. In under 30 minutes, Tesla was left in the dust. BYD didn't just change the rules, it destroyed them. Western automakers are now scrambling, investors are in free fall, and Elon Musk just received a harsh reminder. You don't lose a crown by collapsing, but by being out-engineered. This isn't a step forward in battery technology. It's a complete replacement, a new benchmark, a new threat. So now the question is, when your competition is faster, cheaper, and safer, what do you have left? For years, electric vehicle manufacturers were trapped in a difficult trade-off. Rely on high-density batteries made with nickel and cobalt, or risk falling behind. These materials enabled better range and performance, but came with serious downsides: fires, explosions, rising costs, and troubling ethical concerns, especially around mining practices in regions like the Democratic Republic of Congo. Tesla chose that path. So did Volkswagen. So did GM. And for a time, it worked. Their EVs delivered longer ranges and faster acceleration, drawing attention and praise. But all the while, problems were mounting, both literally and figuratively, beneath the surface. BYD chose a different path, and they chose it years ago. When they introduced the original Blade battery back in 2020, it was already a game-changer. It passed the infamous nail penetration test without igniting, withstood extreme pressure, and held up under intense heat. Engineers at rival companies were stunned, whispering about it behind closed doors, but this new generation pushes the boundaries even further. The chemistry has been optimized for peak efficiency. The cell structure, re-engineered to reduce internal resistance, and heat generation has been significantly lowered. Charging speeds have doubled. Most importantly, none of this came at the expense of safety. This isn't just smart engineering, it's a declaration of independence. By eliminating nickel and cobalt from its batteries, BYD has untethered itself from one of the most unstable and ethically fraught supply chains in the tech world. While Tesla continues to grapple with material price swings and geopolitical risks, BYD has locked in control over its costs, materials, and production timelines. That's when the numbers started making people nervous. Very nervous. If that got your attention, hit subscribe. We're just getting warmed up. 1 megawatt. No mercy. This wasn't just a technical milestone, it was a psychological one. The notion that a passenger car could handle a 1 megawatt charge once sounded like science fiction. BYD turned it into science fact. Charging time has always been a major obstacle for EV adoption. Consumers are used to spending 5 minutes at a gas station. Ask them to wait 45 minutes for a charge, and many won't stick around. Tesla's supercharger network helped bridge that gap, but the reality is that most fast chargers today top out below 300 kilowatts. Even with those advances, EV charging has still felt like a compromise. Not anymore. BYD's next-gen Blade battery can jump from 30% to 80% in under 30 minutes. And what's truly astonishing is how it manages that with almost no heat. This isn't just about speed, it's about efficiency. Most batteries lose a significant amount of energy as heat during charging. That heat stresses the cells, shortens battery life, and demands complicated cooling systems that add both cost and weight. But BYD has addressed the issue at its core. By re-engineering the internal structure of the cell, they've minimized resistance, improved current distribution, and eliminated bottlenecks. This isn't a workaround. It's the removal of the problem itself. The result is a battery that charges faster, lasts longer, and runs cooler than anything Tesla or anyone else is delivering today. This isn't just a product, it's a weapon. Tesla saw it coming, but by the time they realized what BYD was building, it was already too late to pivot. Elon Musk had been vocal about the promise of LFP chemistry. He talked about it in interviews, tweeted about it, and even began integrating LFP batteries into the standard range versions of the Model 3 and Model Y. But there was a problem. Tesla didn't make its own LFP cells. They had to import them from China, introducing dependencies, vulnerabilities, and delays. Meanwhile, BYD had already made LFP the cornerstone of its entire battery ecosystem. While Tesla scrambled to scale partnerships with KITL, BYD was refining its next-gen battery. While Tesla retooled factories to adapt to new cell types, BYD had already built a vertically integrated empire, from raw material extraction to final assembly. That's the key difference. Tesla operates like a tech company that happens to build cars. BYD operates like a car company that builds entire ecosystems. And in the battery game, ecosystems are everything. Tesla's move to LFP came too late. It couldn't match BYD's in-house production scale, couldn't keep up with their pace of chemistry breakthroughs, and couldn't touch their cost advantages. Now, Tesla is caught in a painful dilemma: fully commit to LFP and abandon their high-density batteries, or cling to legacy chemistries and risk being left behind in both cost and safety. BYD isn't just leading the race. They're on a completely different track, and Tesla hasn't even figured out how to reach it. And just when it seemed like BYD's push into the EV world couldn't get any more aggressive, it did. The real reason Tesla can't compete on cost is simple. It was never built to. Tesla's brand has always been about performance, prestige, and cutting-edge innovation. It wasn't designed with affordability in mind. For over a decade, Elon Musk has played the high-margin game, treating electric vehicles as aspirational tech products instead of accessible transportation. That strategy worked, until now. With the next-gen Blade battery and a vertically integrated supply chain that slashes costs at every level, BYD has done what Tesla never could: make EVs cheaper than gas-powered cars, and not by a small margin, but by thousands of dollars. At the center of this seismic shift is Tesla's dependence on premium pricing to stay profitable. The Model Y, Tesla's top seller, still starts above $40,000 in most markets around the world. Even after Musk cut prices in 2023, the vehicles remained well out of reach for average families across much of the globe. That's because Tesla's entire business model, from design and manufacturing to software and direct-to-consumer sales, was built to serve high-end buyers who view Teslas as symbols of status and innovation. It's a compelling model for wealthy urban hubs, but a terrible fit for regions like Southeast Asia, Latin America, or even rural parts of the US. Meanwhile, BYD isn't just making affordable vehicles, they're redefining what affordable even means. Models like the Dolphin, Seagull, and Yuan Plus routinely sell for under $15,000. Now, with the announcement of a $5,000 flying car, BYD is aiming for a market Tesla simply cannot reach. But BYD isn't just undercutting Tesla on price. They're doing it while still delivering on battery safety, longevity, and fast charging. That's not a marketing gimmick. That's an economic weapon. And Tesla can't just decide to compete at that level. Its cars are too expensive to build. Its gigafactories rely on complex tooling and proprietary systems designed for high-margin output. Its supply chains are diverse, but not fully cost-controlled. Tesla once led the industry in profit per vehicle, but that came at the expense of scalability. BYD's low-cost strategy isn't just a threat, it's an existential crisis for Tesla. And if cost was the only advantage BYD held, that would be enough. But it's not. What makes BYD truly dangerous is their greatest strength: total control. Elon Musk often points to Tesla's factories as the heart of its innovation, calling them machines that build the machines. But what BYD has constructed makes Tesla's gigafactories look incomplete. While Tesla zeroes in on manufacturing efficiency, BYD has built something far more formidable: a self-sustaining, end-to-end ecosystem. BYD has been quietly building something far more powerful than just a lineup of electric vehicles. It's been constructing the entire ecosystem behind them. Its vertical integration is nearly absolute. BYD mines its own raw materials, refines its own lithium, produces its own chips, manufactures its own battery cells, and even develops its own semiconductors and electric motors. There's virtually no component of an EV that BYD doesn't make itself. In an industry where most automakers rely heavily on outsourcing, whether it's batteries, software, or chips, BYD stands almost entirely alone. Even Tesla, despite its internal battery efforts, still depends on key partners like Panasonic and CATL to keep its supply chain running. BYD doesn't have that problem. This level of control gives BYD two overwhelming advantages: speed, and cost. Speed, because they can react to market changes instantly. If lithium prices surge, they adjust internally. If there's a chip shortage, they build their own. Cost, because there are no middlemen, no supplier markups, no contractual delays, no loss of leverage in negotiations. BYD owns the supply chain from top to bottom, and it extracts maximum efficiency from every link. This isn't a theoretical edge. It's already showing up in the numbers. While BYD's gross margin per vehicle may be lower than Tesla's, their net margin is closing fast thanks to sheer volume and operational efficiency. They can scale production without hemorrhaging cash. Tesla, on the other hand, has to carefully weigh every price cut against investor expectations. BYD doesn't have that limitation. It can aggressively drop prices and still remain financially healthy. That's how it's able to launch cars like the Seagull and Dolphin at prices that would be financially ruinous for most automakers. And while Tesla has poured billions into AI and full self-driving tech, those investments haven't yet translated into sweeping cost advantages. Meanwhile, BYD's software stack is leaner, quicker to deploy, and tightly interwoven with its supply chain. It allows the company to update not just vehicle features, but the manufacturing process itself. At scale and in real time. BYD isn't just a car company. It's a vertically integrated industrial powerhouse with a single goal: flood the global market with EVs that are cheaper, faster to build, and nearly impossible to compete with. Behind these two companies are two men with radically different visions, and that clash is now shaping the future of electric mobility. Elon Musk built Tesla on vision, chaos, and charisma. Wang Chuanfu built BYD on chemistry, control, and quiet domination. One is a futurist with a Twitter feed. The other, a chemist-turned-industrialist who rarely seeks the spotlight. Their leadership styles have shaped every aspect of how their companies operate, and why one is now rapidly cornering the other. Musk has always cast himself as a revolutionary, someone who takes wild bets, pushes unproven tech, and makes impossible promises that, more often than not, he actually delivers on. Tesla's rise wasn't just about innovation. It was about image. Elon made electric cars cool. He turned them into luxury gadgets for the future-minded elite. That branding helped Tesla survive its early stumbles and grow into the most recognized EV brand across the US and Europe. But that same image is also a vulnerability. The Tesla empire is built on the idea that consumers will pay a premium for anything Elon touches. Wang Chuanfu took a different approach. He doesn't host flashy live streams or unveil cars on Twitter. He rarely speaks publicly at all. He doesn't pitch dreams. He builds scalable, grounded technology. A chemist by training, Wang understood early on that the future of electric mobility wouldn't be one with acceleration stats or meme coins. It would come down to batteries that last longer, cars that cost less, and factories that never sleep. While Musk reached for the stars and vertical takeoff rockets, Wang went all in on vertical integration. And now, that quiet, methodical strategy is steamrolling the noisy one. BYD isn't trying to be Tesla. It's trying to replace it. Musk wants to rule Mars. Wang wants to rule Earth. That difference in focus has never mattered more. And by the time the rest of the world catches on, it might already be too late. The EV war isn't looming. It's already here. For years, analysts warned of a coming electric vehicle price war. What they missed was that it had already begun, and BYD was winning before anyone else showed up. The launch of its next-gen Blade battery, paired with explosive sales across Southeast Asia, South America, and now Europe, has transformed BYD from a domestic champion into a global industrial superpower. It's no longer a question of whether BYD will challenge Tesla. The question now is, can anyone stop them? Tesla still leads the US in EV sales, but BYD has already surpassed them in global volume, at least for one quarter, and that shift signals where the market is headed. Unlike Tesla, which built its brand on exclusivity, BYD is scaling through saturation. They don't want to build the best EV in the world. They want to build every EV in the world. And with their rapid expansion into more than 15 European countries in under a year, they're proving they can. Legacy automakers like Volkswagen, Ford, and GM are caught in the crossfire. Their EV strategies rely on outdated battery chemistries, fragmented supplier networks, and sluggish internal decision-making. They were prepared for a gradual shift. Instead, they got BYD kicking down the door. Even Tesla's long-rumored $25,000 Model 2 might not be enough to compete. BYD already has EVs well below that price, and they're not future concepts. They're available in showrooms today. With every new launch, BYD forces rivals into a brutal choice: slash prices and bleed cash, or protect margins and surrender market share. And this isn't just about cars. BYD's empire now spans home energy storage, commercial buses, heavy-duty, trucks, and even flying cars. They're not building a brand. They're building a civilization-scale infrastructure, and they're doing it faster than anyone thought possible. Tesla made electric cars cool. BYD is making them inescapable. A flying car priced like a laptop. It sounded like a clickbait headline from a sci-fi tabloid, but it wasn't fiction. It was BYD once again ripping up the rulebook and setting the future on fire. In a quiet yet seismic announcement, the Chinese automaker revealed a fully functional flying car for just $4,999. Not a prototype, not a concept. A near-production-ready machine that could soon be gliding above traffic in some of the world's most congested cities. To understand the gravity of this, you have to consider what flying cars have symbolized for decades. The ultimate tech fantasy, reserved for the ultra-rich or relegated to the silver screen. Every serious attempt before this came with a six-figure price tag, some soaring into the hundreds of thousands. BYD didn't just undercut the market, they obliterated it. They made personal flight as accessible as a budget smartphone, and that kind of innovation isn't just disruptive, it's dangerous. It doesn't evolve an industry. It flips it upside down. How did they do it? The answer is baked into everything BYD has spent 20 years building. Full vertical integration, obsessive cost control, and an unmatched ability to scale clean energy tech. Lightweight materials, stripped-down user interfaces, and simplified electric propulsion systems made what seemed impossible possible. They didn't just make a flying car. They made one anyone could dream of owning. But the real shock wasn't just the price. It was the feature set. Retractable landing gear, intuitive controls, urban takeoff functionality. Safety tech so advanced, it made regulators do a double take. This wasn't a tech demo. It was a statement. And as the announcement spread through global tech circles, auto forums, and government think tanks, the message was clear. BYD isn't trying to win the mobility game. They're rewriting it entirely. Then came the aftershocks. On Wall Street, the panic didn't come immediately. The next-gen Blade battery was just another headline. Until it wasn't. Within 72 hours, the financial world woke up to what had actually happened. This wasn't a product launch. It was a seismic shift. Tesla shares dropped more than 12% over 5 trading days. Analysts scrambled to revise forecasts. Some called it an overreaction. Others, like the chief strategist of a major New York hedge fund, called it what it truly was: a justifiable collapse. Because for the first time, it wasn't just Tesla's tech under threat. It was the foundation of its entire business model. Investors who had long treated Tesla like a bulletproof tech stock suddenly saw the illusion crack. And what poured in wasn't just uncertainty. It was fear. Not fear of missed earnings or softening demand, but a deeper, more existential anxiety. What if the West had already been out-innovated? For over a decade, Tesla sold the dream of a cleaner, smarter, more exciting future. Elon Musk turned cars into gadgets, factories into cathedrals of automation, and shareholders into true believers. But BYD shattered that illusion in a matter of months, offering better batteries, cheaper cars, and full-spectrum industrial control. The money noticed. Portfolios shifted. Confidence began to erode, not just in China, but globally. And this wasn't just a market correction, it was a paradigm shift. Wall Street, always drunk on momentum and addicted to narrative, began to sober up. Tesla's story, the grand, unshakable promise of tech-led transformation, was losing its edge. This wasn't about missing a quarter. This was about losing the future. And if BYD could shake the foundation with one battery launch, what else could they disrupt? That's when the question stopped being about Tesla's next product and started being about Washington's next move. The White House enters the chat behind closed doors in Washington, D.C. BYD's battery breakthrough wasn't hailed as a scientific triumph. It was flagged as a national security threat. The U.S. government, already knee-deep in semiconductor wars and battling tariff disputes, suddenly faced a new, harsher reality. America was losing ground in the very domain it hoped to lead: clean energy and electric mobility. In 2023, the Inflation Reduction Act was supposed to cement American leadership in the post-oil era. It unleashed billions in EV tax credits, energy innovation, and battery supply chain incentives. But then came BYD, with a battery that charged faster, lasted longer, relied on zero cobalt or nickel, and cost a fraction to produce. And worst of all, it wasn't American. Inside the Department of Commerce, alarm bells rang. Quiet investigations began. Were Chinese state subsidies giving BYD an unfair edge? Would Section 301 tariffs need to be expanded? Could the US ban more Chinese EV components? Strategy meetings followed. Ford, GM, Tesla, and White House advisors gathered to assess the risk of being left behind. But deep down, everyone knew the uncomfortable truth. BYD didn't need the US market. They had Europe, Latin America, Southeast Asia, Africa. The fastest-growing consumer markets on Earth weren't buying Teslas. They were lining up for Dolphins, Seagulls, and Yangwangs. Tariffs might slow the flow, but they wouldn't stop it. BYD had already taken the lead, and done it while avoiding the global supply chains the US was trying to secure. And the optics? Even worse. China was no longer just the factory of the world. It was becoming the brain of the next industrial age. Congressional hearings exploded with concern. Senators warned about strategic battery dependence. Think, tanks flooded Capitol Hill with white papers on technology sovereignty and economic decoupling. The new Cold War? It wasn't being fought with missiles or microchips. It was being fought with lithium, logistics, and laser focus. The labor quake no one saw coming. While politicians debated strategy, American workers were already feeling the aftershocks. In Michigan, Ohio, and Alabama, regions that built the 20th century on steel, rubber, and gasoline, auto workers began to ask the question no one wanted to answer. Will we still have jobs in 5 years? EVs had already begun rewriting the rulebook. They use fewer parts, need fewer mechanics, and lean heavily on software. But BYD wasn't just another EV manufacturer. It was a total disruption. Their vertically integrated model eliminated the need for hundreds of third-party suppliers. Their simplified assembly lines meant fewer contracts, and their cost-focused automation slashed the need for traditional labor across the board. The impact wasn't theoretical. It was measurable and immediate. Tier 2 and Tier 3 suppliers, those who make everything from brackets to wiring harnesses, began losing orders. Machine shops that once built engine blocks found their work drying up. Entire segments of the workforce that had counted on a gradual transition were blindsided by BYD's full-speed revolution. This wasn't just a trade story. It was a labor story. A story about a future where the heart of America's industrial economy could be hollowed out by a company that most US consumers still couldn't pronounce. And the scariest part? This is just the beginning. The United Auto Workers leadership raised concerns, accusing domestic automakers of failing to protect their workforce during the transition to electric vehicles. But behind closed doors, they acknowledged that the real challenge wasn't coming from Detroit. It was coming from Shenzhen. How do you bargain for labor rights against a company that manufactures its own batteries, mines its own materials, and operates entirely outside your supply chain? The impact was felt across multiple industries. Tool and die shops lost contracts. Assembly plant expansions in the Midwest were put on hold. And logistics firms that once thrived on internal combustion engine components saw business dry up. Meanwhile, BYD kept expanding, quietly establishing design studios and battery labs in places like Europe and Brazil, sidestepping traditional American industrial hubs.